Usually I come up with the piece of paper for talking about the speakers and on the subject. But tonight we've got Alan Campbell and Rob Zacharias. We first started as a men's group back in the early 80s. We've known each other that long. And then one of the guys went out and bought, I think it was the Pisces first kayak that was ever... Solstice, sorry, it's the very same. Anyways, he was going on a trip and he went out there and he talked them into giving them their first copy of it. And the rest of us kind of got hooked on the paddling bug, and we've been doing it ever since. And I think Alan was the first one to join Siska, and then the rest of us followed suit. So we go back a long way. So tonight's presentation, Paddling Fanatics 2.0, is a journey from Petersburg to Port Hardy. These guys have done some Alaska paddling a number of times. There was 3 of them that completed the whole journey that went from Victoria all the way up to Juneau, and then a bunch of them a year or 2 later went back and did Glacier Bay. So this is kind of the trifecta of their escapades up along the coast. But as Alan said at the end of this trip, this is it. No more big trips, just small ones. So would you guys please come up? Thank you. So this moves it forward, just start by pressing it.
Okay, sounds good. Forward, backward.
Oh, the arrows.
Yeah. Arrows.
And I have a little...
You got a little pointer? Oh,
Yeah,
we'll
so
go with
we
your
can-
pointer then.
Okay.
Okay. Is your voice okay? I heard.
I think it's fine. It's
okay.
just a little crackly.
Can I just say a couple things?
Yeah,
and I'm going to
yeah.
get you.
No, you start.
Some of you know that David Maxwell, who was actually the first one of our group that joined Siska, and then he got me into it, was going to go on this trip.
On this trip, yeah.
And then David had an unfortunate accident. We won't go into detail, it's a little embarrassing. He badly injured himself around home. And as a result, he didn't get to go. And we missed him.
Yeah.
So, kind of, David, this is for you. We thought about him a lot while we were out there. We wanted to include him, and we know David well enough that we'd say, oh, man, he would love this, or he would hate this today, you know, that kind of stuff. So we really enjoy paddling as a group, and the good news is this summer, we're going to do that, right? We're going to do a little 2-week trip.
Yeah. No more giant expeditions.
Right, yeah. We agreed on this trip. Enough already. So we've done this 3 times to Alaska. We really recommend it. We're up to do it again. Little pieces though, you know, little chunks, and a couple of weeks this summer sounds about right. So with that, we'll move ahead. Yeah. This was the trip.
Waiting for Fred to finish playing with the lights here. I'm not sure what he's doing back there.
Neither do I, no.
You had it nice and dim there for a while, and then you turned him back up again. Anyway, does that, excuse me, does that show up okay?
You get the idea?
Okay.
Top to bottom? So,
no.
Not so good, Fred.
No.
Somebody move Fred away from the lights. Okay, you saw that? This is a trip summary. So I won't read it all for you, but you get the idea. It took us time to get up there to Petersburg, southeast Alaska. We paddled what you see there over 32 days. So the averages are there. Shortest 8, longest 25.
There, leave it there.
Nice.
No. Yeah, leave it alone.
That's good.
That's good. So camp days means days that we spent in camp not paddling. It doesn't mean we only camped 7 nights. It means we took 7 days off.
Right, that's it. Off of our otherwise day after day after day thing, and then we had a couple of town resupply days, as you
basically this was split into 3 sections of roughly 2 weeks each.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that.
Here they are. So Petersburg to Prince Rupert, so coming back into Canada at Prince Rupert was the first 2 weeks, then Rupert to Shearwater, which is in the central coast, BC coast, and finally Shearwater back to Port Hardy, and we got picked up there.
So you can see the The first leg was actually the most difficult because we paddled 14 days in a row, took no days off. The second was 10 and 4, but with a higher average. The third one was the easiest, only 11 days and only 8 paddling, but there's a lot of open water in that area, and you really have to watch the weather, so we deliberately kind of loaded it up at the front, and as long as the weather cooperated, we went for it, and then we had room to maneuver as we got into it.
So there are a few tricky spots. We have done this before, and we've been in the Central Coast as well. Just very quickly, any big river is going to be a problem. It empties, it's a positive outflow constantly, so Stikine and then the Skeena.
Yeah, they completely interfere with the tides, so you think you're going to have an ebb tide flowing south and you get something going north because the river overpowers the current, and massive amounts of silt. You'll see some good pictures of what happens in a couple of places.
Also big crossings or sounds, usually they're sounds, bodies of water with multiple openings, and so those are tricky because you're on the water, kind of vulnerable for hours at a time, maybe 4 or 5 hours. And then finally, points like Cape Caution, which you probably have heard of. Yeah.
So this section here, you can see that's just wide open Pacific.
Right.
Without a lot of protection. So you really have to watch the weather and time your paddles.
So there's some tricky spots, and the open water crossings I mentioned. We'll get into those as we go through a little bit of a travel log here. But it all began with the Alaska Ferry, and it sails from Bellingham. So we had to get to Bellingham to begin our journey. This is us. It was a nice day. And you get on, now it's interesting, you begin to appreciate BC ferries when you take the Alaska Ferry, or probably Washington State ferries too. These are old vessels, and this is the only one still capable of running the whole coast.
Yeah, it takes hours to get cars off and cars on. It's incredibly slow compared to BC ferries. And we were originally scheduled on the Columbia, which seems like we've been scheduled on that before, and then it's the nicest one, but it seems to break down all the time. So we got on the old Kennecott, which it isn't bad, but it's not as nice.
And you get all this great scenery, which we're familiar with here, but we're kind of leaving it behind.
Alan, did you walk on, or how did you?
Yeah, we walked on. So,
well, we have wheels, and we'll get into the wheels.
Oh, a lot.
Quite a bit. But we had our loaded boats on wheels, and we walked them onto the ferry. Alan's wheels kind of just barely made it onto the boat.
Right here.
Mine were fine, and again, there's more on that, how we fixed them, and we'll get into that. But yes, you need wheels.
Needed wheels, and just an advance, we're going to thank people at the end, of course, who made this possible, but we had to get to Bellingham. Now, when we'd done this once before, we paddled to Bellingham. That's hardcore. So this time we didn't do that. We got drivers. Lisa drove, Rob, and Luke. I don't know if Luke's here tonight, but he drove me. And so we had help in getting to Bellingham, and from there, the wheels and the kayaks and us. So we're heading north and watching the sunset. It's all so lovely. But you've seen these scenes before. What you might not have seen are the sleeping options, because it's a 48-hour sailing. So 2 full days to get to Petersburg. I didn't make this up. This is the hammock zone on that Kennecott vessel. There's a lot of people, not just kayakers, but sometimes they're kayakers or just hikers or travelers, and they don't want to spend any more than they have to, so they find interesting ways of doing it. The hammock zone is there. There's a tent zone. People actually attach their tents sometimes to posts and things because it can get quite windy.
Yeah, a couple times, because we've been on these ferries a number of times. We'll get up in the morning and there'll be somebody's tent just kind of streaming from a pole. So you need to be careful about where you put it, but there are sheltered spots.
Right. Now, Rob, he likes to go kind of first class. So he had a private stateroom. This is definitely the comfort choice, correct, Rob?
Yeah, it's very nice. The Columbia has, every room has its own shower and bathroom. This one, I just had a sink. The rest of it was across the hall. But
This is the rest of his room here. So that's Rob's private stateroom, which costs more, obviously, but well worth the comfort. On the other hand, you can go with the low cost. Put your bag somewhere where people aren't going to trip over you. And this is what happens about 9 o'clock at night. People just start laying down on the floor. So that was my spot.
Why didn't you sneak into his room? I saw 2 beds.
Well, to tell you the truth.
I said he could. He would have had to pay half the cost of it. Because I didn't need 2 bunks, obviously. But I wasn't paying for him.
But I got to like this, Fred. I've done this so many times. And, you meet people, you're part of the, sleep around community.
Alan's a little more of a gregarious guy than I am. I'm good for a while, and after a while, I just don't want to be around people anymore. I want to go shut the door and read my book or whatever. So I need a retreat. For 48 hours, it's too much for me.
Anyway, just so you know, there are alternatives here. And then there's coffee. So this was in their cafeteria because you'd spend a lot of time eating and drinking coffee on this boat. So that's their motto, stay awake. Some people try that, I guess. And we wanted to tell you something about interesting parts of the journey. This was actually the final approach to Petersburg through what's called Wrangell Narrows. And it's on the west side of Mitkoff Island.
Yeah, we'll show you a map in a bit.
Yeah, but what's interesting, I don't know if you can read that, there's 60 lights and buoys on this channel. There's many tidal races. It's complicated, especially for a big ferry. So
they're down to about 5 knots, and they're just snaking their way up here with people watching, and they have to time the tides and currents and stuff. No.
We did not go this way.
We'll show you the alternative. There are pros and cons. This and every powerboat going in or out of Petersburg from the south has to go through here.
Yeah.
It's narrow, it's tidal, there's currents. It's not a great place for kayaks, and we'll show you what we did instead.
So this is you've all heard of Deb's heads and tails game. So we put a little heads and tails things here because we know Siska people like that. So you're looking at a community that we stopped at. Is it Wrangell? That would be heads. Is it Petersburg? That would be tails. You don't have to stand up and do that. Just kind of think to yourself, which one do you think that is?
Left or right hand?
Yeah, right. So Wrangell or Petersburg. They're both very small communities, so it's hard to tell from looking at the houses, I guess. Well, that was Wrangell. So Wrangell you pass before you get to those narrows. You get to this community, which is just south of the Stikine River estuary. I mentioned rivers and what a difference they make. And what's interesting about this community is it's been in 4 different nations over its history, recent history, I guess. The Tlingit, the Russians, Great Britain, and now the United States of America. It's been part of all those places. So that's Wrangell. And we're going to get to the beginning of our story soon. This is Petersburg. Petersburg is larger than Wrangell. This is taken, obviously, from a float plane. It's a Norwegian community, originally, and still has a very Norwegian flair. And as you can see, set up really for fishing and packing.
Yeah, so they could just cut ice blocks out of the glacier and load their fish in, and away they went.
So that's where we ended up in Petersburg. I just got a few pictures here of Petersburg. You just make any comments you want, Rob.
That's just one of the Norwegian things. There's museums and statues, and one of their old boats that looks kind of like a Viking warship, but I think they fished out of that thing.
Yeah, I think so. And we had a B&B, I guess?
Yeah, so Alan booked a B&B, and when we got there, it turned out to be a 2-bedroom house with a double garage. The problem was, I mentioned Alan's wheels earlier. He actually needed help from one of the ferry employees to get his boat and his wheels off. Petersburg has a huge, long metal ramp, and his wheels kept collapsing.
Yeah, just dropping.
And mine were fine, so my plan was that I would get to the end as fast as I could and then come back and help him. But by the time I did that, a kindly ferry employee was walking along, picking up the stern of Alan's boat every
Real big
time
guy.
his wheels collapsed. And then once we got off the boat, we had to haul them uphill, but at least we were on pavement. It was about a 15-minute hike up to this place. But then we had a workshop.
Yeah, fantastic.
So we could go grocery shopping and bring all our stuff back. We brought a lot of stuff with us, but no perishables, and we could pack everything while we figured out where we were going to launch.
That's Rob, and this is me. All that stuff goes in. You can see my wheels. They look a little dinky, don't they? Turned out that was pretty much right on.
So somebody before the show looked at a picture and said, "You didn't do this in a wooden boat, did you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's my homemade boat there." So you'll see more pictures of that.
Yeah. So those are Rob's wheels, just for the record.
These are, I bought them because they're rated at 350 pounds. So I could just load them up and there's no problem.
Rob checked the load limit. Never occurred to me. These are Alan's wheels. Not so good. And so what we ended up doing, again, Rob was helpful with this. We go into a hardware store. They have pretty good hardware stores in Petersburg. And we just started looking around. Well, how can we make this
Yeah,
thing?
we were thinking the problem was this was just so small.
Right.
There wasn't enough surface area.
Short.
And finally I said, what about those sort of nylon-y cutting board things? So we bought this, and if I remember right, we had like 3 straps and 4 ropes, something like that, holding Alan's boat and the cutting board all together. And he took it for a test run that night, and it worked.
Well.
And we went out scouting and found a place to launch, which was about a 20-minute tow away. So fortunately, we could get to the water without incident.
But you'll hear later why Rob's choice of wheels, which, by the way, I now own the same set, was so much better because he could use them later, and this whole system was complicated for me.
So, Alan,
Yeah.
you had space to carry wheels back while you're...
Well, the wheels break down,
Go down
into pieces, and I think you had a deck bag too. My wheels were essentially in pieces in a big bag on my stern deck.
Yeah.
And because we both took wetsuits and dry suits, which you'll hear more about, whichever suit I wasn't wearing was also in the wheel bag.
Yeah. So yeah, we were loaded down, but it all fitted in or on the kayak. This one is after, I guess, I've just launched. Rob's taking this picture, but you can see the tide shift in this area.
So you'll hear a lot of stuff about tides. So you can see when this guy pulled in, he was floating up here somewhere.
It's about 20
And then when the tide goes out, he just settles down, and they've actually got stuff built for the boat to sit on when the tide goes out.
We had a big tide today. Some of us were paddling, and it was 11 feet at its peak.
Which is about half of what we hit up there.
Yeah. A 20-foot tide changes the whole world. It's unbelievable how that works. But
So
there we are.
there's our little ramp that we found that we could come down and launch off this muck and
Here we
head
go.
out. And I'll just throw this in. We paddled in the past, so I had paddled all the way to Kayaking, and on a previous trip I had paddled from Juneau to Petersburg. I'd never been from Petersburg to Kayaking, which was one of the reasons why we did this. So in future, if any of you are thinking of doing this, Petersburg to Wrangell isn't really worth the trouble.
You'll see why.
If we were doing it again, I would start at Wrangell. Petersburg to Wrangell is just kind of a pain. But
Okay.
I didn't know that.
So we take off. So this is the first of those 3 chunks of the trip. And you can see this was where we paddled every day. And we had, the first challenge was the Stikine, and then there was a big crossing as well. So this is well worth checking out.
So
Rob will point at things.
This here, we showed you the Wrangell Narrows. That's how the ferry gets to Petersburg.
Yeah,
We did this.
right.
So dry straits. So on an extremely low tide, From here to here is mud. So we have to time the tide so that we're approaching as it peaks and try and hit it right at the top and get out of there again before it goes too low. So we don't have to worry about any power boats in there because they can't do it.
No, they don't try, but kayakers try, and we seem to sort of get it right. I wanted to point out before we move on from the map, up in the right corner you see BC. So this is how close you are in Southeast Alaska to British Columbia. The border runs right down alongside the water, really. Anyway, on we go. We're on our way, and this was our first camp. Rob had a fun time here.
Yeah, Alan and David had paddled this stretch before, and Alan said, "Yeah, we found this place called Crab Pot Beach, and we'll camp there the first night." So I assumed that this was an actual place, and that he knew exactly where it was.
No?
And we got after we'd paddled for a while, and he said, "Yeah, it's around here somewhere." And there's not a lot of good camping, so we ended up finding this place, which I named New Crab Pot Beach, because it also had crab pots, but it was not the same one that they had stayed at before. So Alan's down on the beach, you can see his boat, and I found this great little spot under a tree, and it was raining, it had been raining all day, but it was dry, so I went to bed quite happy. And I got up in the morning, and the floor of my tent seemed like really kind of soggy. And all the foot-thick moss had pretty much turned into a creek underneath the moss, and it all ran under my tent, which was a new tent, and I stayed dry. I couldn't believe it. It was like rolling around on a sponge. I kind of snuck out the door and very carefully got it down, and the underside of my sleeping pad was a tiny bit damp, and that was it. But that's what I slept in.
What kind of tent did somebody ask?
It is a Eureka. It's a Eureka expedition, guide expedition, something like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, worth getting a good tent for sure. Anyway, so now we're looking at paddling south from there, and we're approaching that dry straits that we mentioned. Look at this view. Isn't that fantastic? I mean, it's just like a picture. And we thought this was going to be a piece of cake. We'd timed the tides. Of course we had. We'd checked the tides. But we were wrong. So we ran aground like, a mile from shore. And that's Rob's kayak. I guess he's taking the picture. Now he's pointing to where we probably should have gone or will eventually go, open water.
So the whole thing was like there was maybe 6 inches of water, but we only had to wait about half an hour.
Yep.
And it came up, and we could skim over in the direction that I'm pointing and carry on and get out of there fast enough.
With 20-foot tides going in like 6-hour increments, it moves fast. So you don't have to wait too long. That's the good news, I guess. Now we're at Wrangell. So this is the place where Rob says you probably should start.
Yeah, that's our landing beach. So we had to carry everything from there over all this crap.
Right.
But we were sleeping in a city park, which was kind of nice. Had real washrooms.
Yeah, had a roof over us.
Yeah.
It was raining most of these days, I think.
Yeah, and the next morning as we were leaving, we noticed a sign that said, "Do not camp in the picnic shelter."
But
Yes.
lots of local people.
Several locals had gone by us in the evening and gave us a big cheery wave,
they were
and
fine.
they didn't care.
Yeah, I've heard some people say, well, Alaskans, maybe they're not so friendly. No, these people are really friendly.
But this would actually be a good place to start a trip south, because the country from here south is really nice.
Gets nice, yep. But this is what we looked at
Back
night.
over this the next day.
That was our launch beach. It kind of went out quite a bit further, I think, the next morning, but nice evening. And then you're going down Zimovia Strait. Now, David will remember a nightmarish night we spent on Zimovia Strait, but despite
We actually found some really good camping.
beautiful
spots.
Look at this. Yeah, this was fantastic. That was the next night, and we found this steep beach. That's what you want with 20-foot tide, very steep beach.
Yeah, we really found that, like normally when you're kayak camping, you look at which way the wind is blowing, when's the the current doing, and, you know, should we leave really early and get out of here? But because the tides are so big, a really major factor is what is the beach going to be like when we're leaving, and what is the beach going to be like where we're landing? So you have to kind of work all that in. If you can avoid it, you don't want to leave or land on a low tide unless you've got a really nice steep shell beach, and they can be hard to find.
Yeah. This is just an example. It's all, you know, wilderness camping. There are no campsites.
So this is up in behind where I was sitting on the beach.
Right.
Just lots of good upland camping.
Yeah. And the next day, nice calm waters here. That's the island we're going along beside. And this is some few days later, I think, but we're along another shoreline of the Cleveland Peninsula. So that's the peninsula coming off the main part of.
And you'll kind of see us at various times in either wetsuits or dry suits, and that was always another debate. Like, what are we going to wear? Totally depends on the weather. But we were both happy we had both of them.
Yeah, good choice. There's some cliffs near a little tiny place called Myers Chuck. We're kind of memorable.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places with cliffs like that, but in between, they had lovely gravel beaches.
Yeah, this is one. So now we're out on this is really the ferry route at this point of the coast, Clarence Strait, big wide strait. Beautiful beaches here. We had a fine time here. And this is us camping. You can see their ferry in the background there. So these are pretty nice. You camp at the top and you don't have to worry about the tide. Just kind of kicking back. Then it got tricky. So where you see that arrow, that's where we started.
Yeah, we started over there.
This day that you're now seeing, but when we came across, it didn't look anything like that. It's about 8 miles, yeah, 8 miles. And it took us 4 hours, but one of those hours, Rob checked, we only did 1 mile. Because it's a big sound, and the current was running in such a way that it created quite a bit of chop. You know, kind of chop that you're getting thrown a bit from side to side. You just keep paddling. And we kind of finally got into some shelter here and looked back and we're like, it doesn't look like anything. What happened out there? But we were exhausted after only 8 miles. So we called it a day. And this is just another example of camp. Oh yeah, that's a good one, Rob. You can.
Yeah, you can see here when the tide's up, comes all the way to there. And the only reason this hole is here is because we cut it. So if you're just paddling along here on a high tide, the water comes right to the trees and it's just dense bush. There's no place to camp at all. But through that edge, if you stop and look, there's all kinds of upland camping back there. You could put 100 tents in.
Yeah.
So it was good to have charts that showed beach and topography that wasn't steep, and we could say probably there's something in there.
Right.
So this is just north of Ketchikan.
Yeah. So now we go past downtown Ketchikan. We didn't stop here because we had just loaded up.
It's full of cruise ships and seaplanes and ferries and all kinds of stuff, so you really have to keep your eyes open. We didn't want to hang around.
Lots of fishing boats, big fishing fleet here. You can see them in the background there as we're heading south. We're out of Ketchikan now and just
So my wheels are in here.
Oh, yeah. Now this one, if you ever do go in this area, talk to us or somebody, because this campsite is worth the whole trip.
And
it's really hidden.
A few slides ago, there was a picture of Alan, I think, going past a cliff. And everywhere in here is just cliffs. There's nothing. There's no beaches. There's no openings. Cone Point is a rock off the end of a rock. And there's one spot that's open, and you have to go all the way in. You go in, you don't see anything. You go in farther, you turn a corner, and then there's this.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing there is for miles and miles. So you kind of have to know how to find it or just get lucky.
Yeah. So that's one, Cone Point. And then this was a beautiful spot. You'll remember this, David, I'm sure. this tidal island spit near Kayaking Point, so another day or so further south.
Couple of paddles south of Ketchikan.
Yeah, beautiful. And then, we took some pictures of the spit, and of course it disappears though.
Yeah, so that last one is getting close to the bottom of the tide. This one's coming up a little bit.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, coming up.
And then we moved the boats up onto those sloping rocks, and the water was underneath our rudders.
Right. You tied them to trees.
Tents are up in here, the boats are tied to the trees.
And again, inside, some really nice campsites. But can't be too close. And then the next day, again, I think my GPS died or something, didn't have batteries. Because there was a good campsite in this next area, but we couldn't find it.
We couldn't find it. We looked for hours.
We kept going, and then Rob found this, which turned out to be a fabulous campsite, but we had no idea where we were. Get the new batteries, put them into the GPS, we're like, holy cow, we're down at Cape Fox, which is the last big point in southeast Alaska. So we had a good day, but it wasn't planned that way at all. This is Cape Fox, and straight out, 4,000 nautical miles, Tokyo. But beautiful. I mean, all this tidal action gets a lot of sea life. Now we're heading toward Canada.
Okay, hello. We are recording. This is Rob and Alan. Pretty much, as far as we can tell, we are smack dab on the top of the Canada-US border. Those are American trees over there. Looking straight down the border in the middle of Tongass Passage. Those are Canadian trees over to the left. 10 years ago, we were right here, along with our friends David and Henry. We were going north into Alaska. This time, we're coming home, south from Alaska. Welcome back to Canada. We're home, eh? Yep.
That's kind of cool. And this campsite was the first one once we re-entered Canada, although we didn't get to a place with the customs yet, that's Prince Rupert, but Proctor Island is gorgeous, just amazing. You can see it here. So Rob kicked back.
Now, when you were in Alaska, did you have to go through customs or anything?
We had to clear customs just with the ferries and stuff, which is no big deal.
Yeah.
But coming back into Canada, Alan had sort of called and they said, well, you have to check in. And we said, well, we can't. We're going to be in the middle of the ocean. Anyway, we phoned when we got there, and we'll tell you a bit about that in a second too.
Pretty easy up there.
Yeah.
Whose feet?
Rob. He's enjoying a nice day off there.
So,
Yeah.
do we have anybody here who's ever caught a fish from a kayak?
Yeah,
A
Tony.
few people? Well, this entire trip, there were salmon jumping everywhere, constantly all around us.
Big
and
salmon.
neither Alan or I are fishermen. We didn't have any gear. So I finally thought, well, I got to do something. So I just opened my spray skirt up and started whispering and calling the fish. And this one jumped right in.
It's a good story. Okay, you're going to tell the truth now?
We'll go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah, okay. It was the gift.
Yeah, we were paddling past a bunch of sporties and trying to stay out of their way, and one guy said, "Hey, you guys want to fish?" So I did open my spray skirt and it dropped right in. And you can see I had my trusty cast iron frying pan,
And that's it.
so I hacked it up into steaks, and we feasted on salmon for a couple of days.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. However, we now began to encounter the fog. So we're north of Prince Rupert, and this is called South Burnt Cliff Island. And the fog rolled in, I guess, overnight while we were sleeping. And
Yeah, and I decided this was a long carry, but relatively smooth and packed, so I'd give the wheels a shot, and they worked perfectly. I could load up the boat right outside my tent and just push it down into the water. It was fantastic. But, you know, if there's rocks and muck, you can't do it. But in this case, it worked out.
There's Rob getting it all organized. So we wanted to say something about foggy paddling, and you'll see quite a few pictures, because basically from here, except for the time we were in Prince Rupert
Yeah.
itself, for about another
This was
week,
all fog and fog all the way down here.
it was very foggy. And that's the North Coast for you. So it changes everything. And at a low tide, remember the 20-foot tides, the shore comes out, you know, with these spiny reefs, and you're like, is that the shore, or is that just one of those little inlet things? We're not, you know, it's hard to tell.
So this one, that's actually looking at the beach, but the actual coastline, according to the chart, is about a mile that way.
Yeah.
And this is just a mile of seabed and rocks and weeds. So we had charts and we had navionics and we had GPS and we had all kinds of stuff. And it was still a struggle to figure out exactly where we were, because the electronics will say, well, you're right here, but you can't see anything. So are we at this end of this little island, in the middle of it? Where exactly should we turn? Or is that a bay, or is that a strait? Or so there was a lot of slow moving and a lot of discussion and figuring and debating, but we sorted it out.
Eventually, we did find that the tip out there, we had to come around.
Yeah, so we had to come past here and then turn. So if we missed this,
Oh, yeah,
we were off into
bad news.
nowhere.
Yeah.
So fortunately, we were able to stay close enough and the fog lifted a little bit and we could find this little piece of gravel and turn around it and head into Prince Rupert.
And this channel goes straight into Prince Rupert Harbor, and we went straight to the deluxe kayak mooring at the Rowing and Yacht Club. Look at that. Just room for the two of us.
Yeah, so they came down and said, go ahead, park your boats here, and we went up to the office and called customs. We had to have our passport numbers and our names and where we'd come from, and they just checked us in over the phone. It was really easy.
And then it was shore leave time.
Yeah.
They look a little different even than when we started. Prince Rupert, we went there. You can
So we had laundry to do, we had groceries to buy, and restaurants to eat at, and just kind of showers and take it easy and rejuvenate a little bit. 2 nights, and then we were off onto the second leg.
It's a great hostel in Prince Rupert. So
Yeah, the hostels, a lot of hostels I wouldn't want to stay in, but the one in Prince Rupert is really nice, and we actually had our own apartment. They have an apartment in the hospital that you can, hostel that you can rent. So we had like a 3-bedroom apartment with a kitchen and a living room.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
very nice. And this is
We left the kayaks floating.
right there.
So we only sort of drag out what you need, clothes to clean, whatever. It's a bit hard because you've got a new supply of food and you don't want to take everything out of your boat. So you kind of cram it all in, and then the first night after you rip it all out on the beach and get it stowed properly.
Repack it, yeah.
But it's really nice not to have to drag everything
For sure.
and just leave it floating.
So now the next section. So this goes down to mid-coast, Shearwater. And we had more weather days here. And again, we mentioned the fog. Met some wolves, had some long crossings. Beginning the fog, we decided that the fog, although right in the town of Prince Rupert, the sun came
Yeah,
through.
the sun was shining the whole time we were in PR.
But you get out on the water, gone. And there's a lot of shipping around Prince Rupert, major shipping. And if you can't see anything and you're hearing things, it's disquieting. And we had to navigate another estuary. This is the Skeena now. We ran into its lowest
Yeah,
point.
similar to dry straits, we were trying to time the tide and we were close. We didn't have to wait too long.
We're getting to be practiced at this. And then this was us paddling along the shore of a big island. We knew we'd have to leave this island and head straight out to get toward Porcher Island, which for the island we were
So
actually
Smith
aiming at.
Island is over here.
That's the island. You can barely see it in the fog, but to the right we saw nothing. And this shows our track.
So that last fog picture is us following this coast in the fog. We had to find this little island first, and then hit this one, and then follow it, and then compass shot to here because we couldn't see anything. It was just a big gray bank all the way across.
But like the true pros we are, we hit the island.
We did.
Dead on. Dead on. We were so happy to see that. So this is McMicking, a great campsite, and then we were staying here a couple of days because we knew we'd have to repack everything after not being able to load the boats properly. And it was great, nice place, foggy, of course. And I think we show,
Yeah, we had some
came out
sun
during the day.
the next day,
Yeah.
so we could just kind of chill.
But you can see how the fog's sort of hanging around, and then it intensifies overnight.
This one, we were there long enough to see a full cycle of tide. So at high tide, these trees were floating. And the low tide was another 3 vertical feet below Allen's feet. So that's how much it moves twice a day. So you can imagine if you stretch that out on a flat beach, it is a long, long, long way. So it's a major consideration when you're looking about when do I leave, when do I land. You really need to be on top of that.
And so our next campsite, we went through Petrel Channel, which kind of angles its way between islands and but we found a really great campsite here at what we called the elbow, a sharp turn. Again, we were still in fog for most of this day, but it cleared up at the end of the day. And there was a canoe run there that had been set up.
Yeah, who knows how old that is. I imagine people have improved it, but we could get in and out pretty easily.
So to low tide, somebody's taking the rocks away and you can get down without killing yourself. And then the next stop was Anger Island,
Yeah,
which...
I ate huckleberries pretty much every day this entire trip. They were just all over the place, but particularly on Anger Island.
Yeah, Anger, I don't know if you can point at, it's,
Is it here?
yeah, that's right, that first one after, yep, that's Anger Island. And it had the biggest and best display of these berries that we'd seen anywhere. So either the bears, it's not on their map or something, I don't know, or it could be the beginning, where they all come from, I don't know. They were wonderful. Rob went out gathering regularly. And then we got weathered in there. I guess there was some high winds as well as the daily fog. But eventually we got out down the strait to another place, Moncton Inlet. This was us camped there, I think, at a high tide. This is probably a low tide, lower tide. And this is just to show you how we dealt with water.
So
down creeks.
this is like a dry bag with a filter, carbon filter screwed into the bottom. So we just scoop the bag full of water in one of these pools, drip it into our carry bags, and then carry on with filtered water. So we'd stop. If we had a place at a campsite, of course, we'd do it there. But if we didn't, we'd go by a creek or a river and stop and fill up our bags.
Now you may think that water doesn't look too good, but it's just because of all the cedar in the
Yeah,
area. It
it-
gets that color. It doesn't matter to the water. It's good. So we wanted to say something about different styles, because Rob and I have different styles. So tent sites. I mean, this is all true, and we're good friends, and we respect each other's choices, but Rob likes to be up high and have a kind of a gladed site. He calls it the Sylvan Glade tent site. And then he organizes, if you see him sitting there, he sets up so that everything he needs is within arm's reach. The guy doesn't move. Once he's got that organized, he's just sitting there. It's something to see. He can cook a whole meal and not move. I've seen it happen. That's Rob. I, on the other hand, like the water, but maybe not quite this much. You know, this was tight. This was really tight, but it was going down. I was pretty sure it was going down. So, and I don't do that whole sit with everything. I tend to get up a lot and walk around. So whatever. I like the beach side. On terms of cookery, Rob he's kind of a chef. He does a full cook-up. If we were stopping for an extra day, this is breakfast. Imagine that, eh? That's the fry pan, and you can see he's got his wooden plate there with some other materials, and
got
there's
a
his
wrap
foot.
over
He's
there.
just sitting in that one place. He's not moving. He gets wraps going. Look at this stuff. I mean, this is high quality food. And then he would gather some supplementary protein from mussels from time to time. Just a connoisseur. You know, what can I say? It's working for me. I had maybe a half dozen cans, that's it. But it was, it's good to have that, you know? It's very, very confidence building. Turns out they sell a lot of it up there in the North Coast. And I was a little jealous of his wraps, so I made some Spam jam things. 2 pieces of Spam fried, and you put jam in between them. Like I don't think it's going to go viral anytime soon. It's good. Hits the spot. I go to bed early. Always have. I get up real early, whereas Robbie's about 2 hours time shifted from me. And that actually worked out really well because we could cover more of the 24-hour clock that way. And there was a situation on Campania where that was critical.
This is Campania?
This is Campania.
We've been to Campania 2 or 3 times before, and the biggest problem was always bugs. It was horrible for bugs. There were no bugs there at all this time. I think the wolves scared them away. But we had read before we left, and we got multiple texts on our inReach from various friends and family saying, don't go to Campania, the wolves are a problem. So we said, okay, we won't go. But you have to go by it. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's on the road.
And we looked for hours to find another place. We had charts, we had GPS aerial views, and we'd find all these beaches, and we'd get there, and they'd be covered with logs, or totally tidal, or swamp. And we looked and looked and looked, and we just gave up and said, okay, we'll deal with the wolves. And we set up camp. They were covered. All these are human tracks, but there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of wolf prints all over the beach.
Pretty good size wolf
Yeah.
prints.
So we took all our food, put it in bear barrels, moved it like 100 meters away from the tents, jammed it between 2 logs, put everything hard cover in the kayaks, had nothing in the tents whatsoever but ourselves. Alan, like he said, was asleep. I'm sitting in the tent about 9:30, 9:45. I hear this noise. I thought, no, it's just water. And I hear it again. Open the door of my tent, and Alan's kayak is about where that piano is from the door of my tent. And there's a wolf chewing on his boat. So I start yelling at the wolf, and he just looks at me, sort of with disdain, goes back to chewing on Alan's boat. So I get my air horn out and I start blasting it, and he looks up at me again, and it's like he's saying, "That all you got, bro?" Didn't bother him in the least. So I thought, okay, I get the heavy artillery out, and I had not set up my bear bangers, but I knew where they were. So I dumped them out of my bag that I have all this crap in the tent, and which made kind of this clanking sound. And he was like, he didn't like that metallic noise. So I'm sitting there. This is not a bear banger. I have some with me if anybody wants to see them. So I'm screwing this thing on the end of the launcher, and he's staring at my hands. He can see I'm doing something. He doesn't know what it is. And I get this thing on, and he lopes around, goes behind Alan's tent, and he's up on a rock, like from about here to the edge of the screen, and he's staring at me. So I aim at him, and he just goes tense, like, boom, like that. And I shoot this thing right at his head, you know, and he just springs sideways, and this thing explodes about a foot beside him, right where his head was. And he just bolts, runs into the trees. We didn't see him again. And of course, I'm making all this noise. Alan's says, "What's going on out there?" You know, there's a wolf. You know, I'm shooting him. So by the time I ran the wolf off, Alan's got half dressed, and he's out of his tent, and he walks over to his boat, and Yeah, it looks okay. There's just like one set of paw prints. There's only one. So he goes back to sleep. And I go back to sleep. And I get up in the morning at like 7:30 or something. He's been up since 5. He goes for a walk and looks down and says, oh, somebody's lost one of the carrying handles off their boat. Kind of looks like mine. That is mine. So he picks his handle up, comes back to his boat and takes a closer look, and the wolf has chewed through the rope and chewed through one of his fiber rudder control cables. And, we have tools, we have spare stuff. So by the time I got out of bed, he'd already repaired his rudder control line and his lifting handle. And we packed up and left.
Yeah.
So
That was an eventful night. We wanted to give you a little demonstration. This is in the nature of education because some people may not have.
this was just shot around Christmas time. You can
Right.
see I've got my Santa hat.
This is at Cormorant Point.
And we're recording.
Okay, so this is a bear banger firing pin, this is Alan's. It's a bit sticky, he needs to oil it.
Okay.
There's a little notch here, and that's how you fire it, by pulling this back and letting it go. And when you're loading, you can put it in a little cocking position. So this is a fired banger. Yeah, the shell doesn't actually go anywhere, it's what's inside the shell that shoots. So this one is empty.
Empty.
This is a live one. So it's got a little gray tip on the end. You unscrew that. And then you screw this in there like that. So that's live, it's ready to go. All right. I don't know how old this is, so hopefully it's still good.
Yeah.
So this is caught, some of the firing pins, the one I have has another launch position. So I can pull it right down to the bottom and it's there when I'm aiming. This one's a little simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully uncock it, but I don't want to let go of it. I pull it all the way back. And we're going to say there's a bear down somewhere on the other side of that top.
Okay, wait a second.
Amateur videography.
Green kayak?
Green kayak.
Okay.
So you can see it's a firework.
So it'll shoot like 75 feet or so, and depending on how much you angle it.
I have used these 4 times in reality. There was a reason to use it. I've always carried bear spray and I've never used it. So, in my opinion, bear spray is when the bear is like in your face. It's maybe a few meters away or it's sticking its head in your tent.
Yeah.
These things, you see one down the beach and it's looking kind of curious, and you think, okay, I'll just shake them up a bit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of proactive.
Yeah, and you used 2 of them on our trip.
On our last trip with Alan, I fired one at a very threatening wolf.
Yes, it was.
And one at a bear, and they both worked perfect.
Like a charm. Okay, thanks, Rob.
Okay, so after that experience, we were looking for a little downtime, and we found that at Baker Point. If you ever get there, northeast
One of my
Arizona.
favorite places.
Just a gorgeous place. So Rob has his tent and a place he liked from before, kind of he knows the neighborhood, and that was where I was. This is Rob.
Oh, this is Baker Point. You hear the waves. Maybe a bird call once in a while. That's all there is. What's the way up?
That's it.
That's it. That was amazing. And then the next campsite too, if you ever get down further south, Wilby Point is on the northwest of Swindle Island across Kitasoo Bay. And I mean, it's just absolutely mind-bogglingly beautiful. This is all Klemtu, rather Kitasoo, Hei territory in the Central Coast. Gorgeous. These are pictures from Wilby Point. Some of you may have been there.
Blue huckleberries.
Blue
Blue ones. I've never seen those on the coast.
And there's a Kayak Bill
Yeah, if
campsite.
you're familiar with Kayak Bill, there's a bunch of them on the south end of Aristozabal, and there's one right in the woods there. It looked like where he could sit and look at the strait and decide when to go across.
Sunset across Kitasoo Bay.
This is coming into Pidwell Reef. Pidwell Reef is just this bit of rock out there. You can almost paddle past it. But that was the hottest day of the trip. I don't know what the temperature was, but we were just baked. It must have been up in the mid-30s. We just had like a Farmer John wetsuit and a shirt with the sleeves pulled up and nothing else, and we were still cooking. And we got into the beach, and I just kind of did the minimum amount to get my stuff away from the water. Went in the creek, and I was actually sitting in one of these pools. I just fell in my wetsuit and slowly peeled everything off and washed all the salt and the sweat out and sat there and cooled off and enjoyed the view. Creek at each end of the beach. It's a beautiful spot.
You had to actually stay out of the sun. It was that.
And this is late afternoon. I was still too hot.
Yeah. Just baking there. Beautiful campsite. And we go across Millbank, and we're heading into Seaforth Channel. If you know the area, that's what leads into Bella Bella and Shearwater. So getting close to our next stop. But we stopped at this little tiny islet just at the entrance, near the entrance to Seaforth, where there were 2 spots.
Yeah, at a high tide, there's really only one. So Alan likes to live dangerously, so we put him on the beach.
I didn't get wet. Pretty nice, but very, very tidal. And now we're in Shearwater. So Shearwater is a mixed community, I guess you'd say. The resort now has been bought by the Heiltsuk First Nation, which is in Bella Bella. Big First Nation, very sophisticated. And they've taken over ownership of the resort and restaurant and so on. They're all operating, but they're owned now by the First Nation. So I think they'll keep going. They have a commitment to that area. We were happy to be there.
So we were in a room, I think, in this place on the back, probably one of the cheapest rooms in the place. It was so small you could hardly walk between 2 single beds. Tiny bathroom with one of those showers where you have to be a yoga master to wash your feet. Squish. It was $400 and something a night. So you maybe don't want to spend a lot of time there, but if you need a place to sleep, the rooms are clean and the restaurant's good.
Yeah.
And you can park your kayak on the water and leave it floating.
Right, we'll show that. And if you're going this way and you don't want to stay in town, as it were, I know a great campsite nearby at Rainbow Island, so you don't have to be here, but it's nice if you've been out for a long time. So those are our kayaks. You can see they're moored, and we did the same thing we'd done in Rupert, left them floating, grabbed some clothes to wash, and we restocked. This is shopping in Bella Bella, which is by far the bigger community, and
Just
has
a
some nice
short
places.
kind of water taxi ride across the bay from Shearwater.
Yeah. Nice sort of semi-museum that's down there now with this shop. And that's their big house, main panel. Some very, very good artists in that area. This was interesting. These 2 guys were from Vancouver. They were running this, what's called a panga, little motorboat. They have an outfit called Tsunami Pangas, and they were checking how much fuel they used to try to make that a feature for their sail up and down the coast. They're a boat that has been used in lots of areas in South America and in Asia for a long time. Very good work boat. They're not expensive, and they're trying to make a case for selling them to everybody.
Oh, a lot of the boats you see on the coast now have like twin 150s, twin 200s. These guys had twin 40s,
Yeah.
and they were going like 25 knots from Vancouver to Shearwater on a few red cans of gas. So really fuel efficient, whatever, water dynamic hull. I don't know what the,
Don't know.
yeah, very efficient hull.
They can just run them up on a beach. I mean, they can do anything with them. So that was fun to meet those guys. And we got set for our last challenges here, which were, of course, more fog. But we knew we were on the homeward stretch. We've done this part several times. This is Bella Bella, just a view of the town across the channel from Shearwater as you go by. And we camped down at Cultus Sound. Some of you may have been there, which is the bottom of Hunter Channel. And here we met some of the few people we did meet. We only met a few people on this entire trip. We were out there about 6 weeks, and 5 or 6 weeks. And there was a family that came in here in the morning out of the fog.
Yeah, mom and a dad with 2 little girls and 2 doubles.
And they came out of the fog and they'd paddled from the Goose Group. If you know the Goose Group, it's about 10 miles offshore. And these were very good paddlers, mom and dad. But they kept going. They thought, yeah, we'll do a bit more.
There's not a lot of room above tide in this place.
Yeah. I guess this is us there.
Yeah.
Kind of squeezed in. Yeah. There's this silver glade, see? I'm on the beach taking my chances with the tide. Tide came well up. And the tide reshapes everything. If you've been there before, this might not look like Cultus, but this is Cultus. The logs move around. How many of those did you have?
Well, because we got to resupply, I could buy a new batch every time. So if I had 12 and we weren't going to be going for more than 14 days, I was pretty much covered. And that one, that's the one that you found floating.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he found a can of beer floating in the ocean, and he doesn't drink. So he gave it to me, and it was perfectly good.
Providential. It was divine. It was meant to be. Yeah, then we went up Fitzhugh Sound.
Fitzhugh Sound, I never need to see Fitzhugh Sound again. And we went to Alaska, heading north. We paddled 20 nautical miles, like almost 40 kilometers into a headwind, and we're just exhausted. And I figured this time we'll have a tailwind, it'll be easy. So we did the same 20 nautical miles southerly into a headwind in the other direction. So, and it's like 5 miles wide. It's a big channel.
Yeah, big wide channel. It's a whale passage. Remember halfway across?
Yeah, lots of whales.
Yeah.
We did see a lot of whales on this trip, like humpbacks by the dozen.
Lots of humpbacks. And the humpbacks you worry about because they're so big and you're so small. They don't do echolocation, and it's like, oh boy, where's he going now? You know. And when you're trying to just keep going in big seas like we had on this, you just hope for the best. But it all worked out. Now we're on Fury Island, which is a beautiful little anchorage.
Yeah, it's like a little tropical lagoon. Once you get in here, there's a couple of narrow entrances, and I'm pretty much standing in front of my tent. You just park the boat right there and pitch your tent. And tide doesn't go very far because it's in this little lagoon and it's steep shell beaches. It's gorgeous.
Very nice. But we did use a cabin, which is there, kind of not well cared for at all, because we were completely drenched by this.
Yeah, it had rained, like pouring hard rain for 24 hours.
Our charts, pretty much everything. So we got that stove there really cooking. And
back here. They didn't really have a door on it. The door had fallen off, but we just leaned the door up and split up a bunch of wood and dried everything out. Okay.
Red sandwich.
So this one day is probably one of the most eventful days I've ever had, where things happened in one day. We left that gorgeous lagoon, sort of debating wetsuit, dry suit, wetsuit. Finally decided on the dry suits and started off paddling out of that lagoon and through this beautiful archipelago. We had dolphins leaping and swimming around us, so close we could see the water beating on the side of their bodies. Eventually got out of the lagoon, and then we had to cross the first channel, which was like 7.5 kilometers,
Yeah.
4 miles.
Yeah.
And the weather started to kind of get a bit ugly. The swells were coming up, the wind was coming up, And we thought, well, we'll go in the islands on the other side and get a break for lunch. Well, by the time we got there, instead of being shelter, they had the rocks in the islands just stirred everything up. There were waves all over the place and crazy currents, and we had to kind of fight our way out and then surf on these 2 to 3 meter waves back in between two islands to get through the last ones. And then that put us into the next crossing, which was another 7.5 miles.
Yeah.
And we couldn't see the other side. You can see this is called red sand because it's actually sort of brown, but we couldn't see that.
No.
And then as we were crossing, the wind was picking up, the swells were going 1 meter, 2 meters, occasionally 3 meters, and they were hitting like starboard astern, so they'd smack into the back half of the boat, which would push the stern left, and of course it would push the bow right. And my boat, because it's so straight and doesn't have a lot of rocker, I can pretty much deal with that. It's not that big of a deal. Alan's boat is way more maneuverable than mine, which is useful.
It's a problem in this
But in these
situation.
conditions, he was just
Yeah.
like back and forth. So he was busy. He could handle it. I wasn't worried about him, but he had to focus on that. So I had to watch the charts, try and figure out where we were. Finally found this little island called Watcher with a nav mark, and good, we're good to go. And then we got in close, out of the waves. We're watching the beach because it can be surfy. Oh, great, there's only like these little 4-inch wavelets, no problem. So I just shoot straight in, chuck my paddle, pop my spray skirt, I start getting out, these 2-foot waves, I don't know, old boat wake, what, smacked into the back of my boat, spun it sideways.
Turned it over.
I fell into the surf with 1 foot stuck in the cockpit and was getting all sort of bashed around. Finally got up, didn't get hurt, so we thought, oh, that's pretty funny, and got my boat heaved around, and by the time I got settled, Alan looks around, oh, the waves are gone. He just cruises right in, steps out of his boat, no problem whatsoever. So,
He'll learn. It's all timing.
my cockpit's completely full of water, I'm dealing with that. Anyway, we go up, we look for campsites, get all sort of straightened out, and we start ferrying our stuff out of the boats. He's a bit ahead of me because I had to get the water out of mine. I'm down on the beach, I'm getting the last load of stuff out, and he shouts, bear, bear on the beach. And you can see the size of these suckers. I look up and there's the biggest bear I've ever seen. He's just huge. A black bear, he wasn't a grizzly, but man, he was gigantic. And he's off to the side, and there's Red Sands has got a little creek bed at each end, and Alan's yelling and waving, and the bear's just kind of looking at him. So I run up the beach, and the two of us are yelling and waving, and the bear is looking kind of confused, but he's not really all that frightened, and he really doesn't want to go back. So we stopped, and we had a little chat, and we figured probably he wants to come down this creek, go across the beach, go up the other creek. So we'll just let him do that. So we shut up, kind of faded into the back. He looks around, okay, trucks along. He almost had to step over our boats. He was so close to them. But he didn't pay any attention to him at all. Starts heading up towards the second creek, and we figured, oh, good, we're good to go. By this time, we were both carrying bear spray, and I had my banger loaded. And he gets about 50 feet away, and he turns around, and he stops, and he looks, and he sniffs, and he kind of goes one paw back. And you can just see him thinking, do these things taste good? Are they scary? So I said, okay, here we go. Fired a banger right just above his head on the water side, and he bolted and ran away.
That was that.
So I
was
didn't
the
get my
second.
camera out until after.
Yeah.
But
And then the next day we're around Cape Caution, which went quite well.
Yeah.
And we get to Burnett Bay, which is, many of you will know, is a gorgeous place. I think this is a little video. It was really windy. You're not going to hear my voice. I'm going to say it's about 4 miles long. It's a beautiful bay. And has amazing accommodations. at the north end, this cabin has been there for many years. The three of us crammed into it when we were going up with David.
But
And
now there's two cabins.
There's 2 cabins,
So we each have our own.
Rob had a private cabin right there, the old stove and everything, and he got it all working.
So if I stand up in the middle of that cabin, my head is just like half an inch under the roof beam. It's like a hobbit size.
It's got a lot of history, and they keep logs there. And this one is relatively new. It's closer to the beach. I kind of like the beach. And so I was in this one. We had separate accommodation, which was useful because Rob didn't have to worry too much about getting his stuff back because he'd gotten so good with these damn wheels. And my wheels were just toast. So he didn't have to carry anything separately from the water. And this is a long way. You're going to see in a second here. That's it.
Alan's back there.
Yeah. I think
So-
I did 8 trips.
Yeah. And you can see these are my wheel tracks up here. So it only sunk like half an inch. The sand was so hard packed. And I did offer. I said, once I was done, I got my boat, I could skid it off the wheels right onto the logs. I didn't even take the water out. And I went back and I said, look, we can put, and he said, oh, I got half of it already.
Since I get up at 5 o'clock, I got started pretty early. By the time he got up, I was halfway there.
So then
I'm a bit stubborn.
when we left, I just plunked my wheels on the sand and I skidded my boat off the logs right on, tied a strap on, and walked down to the beach.
There's a lesson there.
He'd been up for 2 hours carrying stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, we left, I guess, the next day. Didn't
Yeah.
extend our time. We were trying to get down, make sure we were on time.
This is just a rock I liked.
This is a pretty little picture. And Shelter Bay is on the mainland, within a day's paddle of Port Hardy, really, but
Northeast of Port Hardy through a couple of island groups.
yeah, beautiful campsite there. Again, some fog, of course, but nice place to camp in the bush. There he is, wrap and all, everything within arm's reach. Isn't that a nice campsite? I mean, it changes through the day as that isthmus inundates, and it's beautiful. And then we went through that fog, kind of got a little misdirected.
Yeah, we ended up one channel to the east, I think,
Yeah,
where we
yeah.
wanted to be, but we could figure it out, so
Yeah.
it wasn't too bad.
And we ended up at God's Pocket. This is Bell Island at God's Pocket, and we wanted to, be a short paddle from Port Hardy. So this is only about 7 miles or so.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours into Hardy.
Yeah. And we'd been here before many times. As you can see, it's a midden site. These are all barnacle midden, barnacle shells on this midden. And we'd actually done some work here before. I think you were working down to your last one.
Yeah, I was on my last one.
Had to get home now. This is looking down on it. Beautiful
Yeah,
little
the
beach.
tents again are up off the beach because the beach pretty much disappears. You can see the tide lines here.
Yeah, so we've got them sideways. And the Catfish guys had done some work on this beach, the canoe
10
run.
years previously.
Pulled all the rocks off to the side to make it better. And we actually, with a few guys had put together these stairs so that the midden wasn't crumbling.
Yeah, 10 years later, they were still there. It was
Still there.
amazing. Some of the gravel and shells had covered them up a bit, but it was still totally functional. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. And that was the view. So we could see our way across Golitas. It's over there, big
But by the
island.
time we left, that fog you can see was more like this. We
about to
couldn't
see that, right?
see that
Here.
entrance really anymore.
That's the next morning. Same view, not much. And so we paddled through that. And what we learned to do was to paddle side by side and keep watching the compass and just keep correcting each other.
Yeah.
Oh, Alan, you're going too far to the
Because you
east.
take your eye off the compass for like 10 seconds,
You're going
and you look
somewhere
back and you're 20 degrees different.
Yeah.
So we'd have to keep reminding each other, you're shifting, you're drifting, come back.
Yeah.
And we could keep pretty straight.
And then you listen for the boats, stop when you hear one, try to decide where it is, and hope they don't come too close. Anyway, that was it. That was our last day. It was a fantastic adventure, but we think we're done with the epic trips.
Yeah, I've done four 4 trips, 5 trips of a month or longer.
Yeah, you did the circumnant,
Yeah, and then we did the West Coast.
West
So
Coast,
I don't need
that's
to do any more
Yeah.
sort of expedition A to B stuff.
So we're gonna do more, but not quite that long. And Rob, he just loves being out there. See how happy that guy is? Yeah, I mean, it elevates your spirit being out in the wilderness, despite all its obstacles. I get a little bit silly. But we're friendly. And we want to thank Lisa and Katrina, of course, and then our transport crew, Lisa again and Luke, and the retrieval. So John Winkley was here tonight, and David came up and picked me up and took us back home. And then we met a lot of other wonderful people along the way, which is another good reason to take a trip like this. You're out there and you meet other people who enjoy being out there, and we met tons of them we haven't talked about. And makes it all worthwhile. That's it, I think. Any questions? Who wants to leave tomorrow morning? Because weather's getting a little warmer, I think.
Questions? Anybody got questions for these guys?
Yeah?
Did you leave Petersburg through that narrow channel that you can look down, like,
No.
and there's just, it's incredible. It's why I have a window on the bottom of my kayak.
Oh, okay. No, we haven't paddled in that channel.
Oh, it's huge, huge. See?
Okay, well, if I go back to Petersburg, I'll check it out.
It's the most epic place I've ever had.
Okay.
Beauty and
Petersburg is a great place, by the
Yeah.
way, and north of there, Cape
Yeah.
Fanshawe,
Yeah.
that's where we were bewitched by
That's
humpback whales bubble feeding for days. I mean, it's an amazing area, well worth getting to.
yeah, I came down in Stickeen, and so I know what you read about those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We lined our boats.
okay.
So to average about 30K a day, how much training did you do to get ready for that?
Just our usual routine, like we both paddled once or twice a week, day paddles around here. We both ride our bikes. We didn't do anything special, but we could paddle. I knew I could paddle that far, so. And physically, I was fine. I didn't have any issues with it at all. The reason I don't want to do it anymore is because I don't want the mental grind of making and breaking camp over and over and over and over again and hauling the stuff up and down the beach. It was like I'd wake up in the morning and go, oh, crap. But once I got in the boat, I was fine. But whenever future trips I don't want to move more than every second night at the most. Just stay in one place and do day paddles, maybe move once or twice, do some more day paddles. I still want to camp, but I don't want to do the linear day after day after day anymore. But yeah, you do need to be in good shape, but we didn't do anything in particular. We're pretty fit to start with.
How much weight did you lose?
I didn't weigh myself, probably only about 10 pounds, less than I've lost in the past. I have lost like over 20 on one of these trips. This one, because we had both Shearwater and Prince Rupert, where we could feast on restaurants, it was never more than 2 weeks of, just camping, but we did lose some weight, but I didn't weigh myself exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like maybe it wasn't heavy stuff, but did you notice having stuff on top of the kayak change the handling in the
It didn't bother me. What was in that bag looked pretty big. It had, like, my wheels only weigh, 5 pounds or something, and I'd have a rolled up wetsuit in there, and that was it. And the heavy stuff would be on the bottom of the boat, so the center of gravity was down there. Possibly you get some windage on it. But again, my boat in particular just tracks. It goes very straight. And it might have affected him more having that raised thing on the back for the wind to hit.
Yeah, the Nimbus, I have a Nimbus Telqua high volume, and so it's big anyway, and I put a lot of stuff in it. So it's heavy, sits down in the water, and then it works better, actually. Those kayaks work better with load. I didn't notice it being dangerous at all, but it certainly is more work, and you feel the swing of it, especially when you're in those waves, because the Nimbus has a big rocker, and so you're turning every time there's a side wave or swell or whatever. It's just more of a handling thing, and it becomes automatic. You don't even think about it after a while. You're just kind of working the boat.
Yeah.
Rob, what was the name brand of the wheels that you found successful? And do you remember what size that bag is that fit in it?
Do you remember the name of the wheels?
I don't, but we can get it for you.
We can get it for you. Well, the ones I have are a Sea-Tug knockoff.
Yeah.
And they're like they're $100.
Yeah.
And I now know several people who have them, and they're very sturdy.
Yeah.
But they look almost the same as the Sea-Tugs, but they're a different name. The bag is a seal line. It's about this big,
It's a deck bag, rear
and
deck.
it's like that wide, about this deep if it's full. And of course, you can roll it down because it's like a dry bag. It'll squash flat if there's nothing in it. But it's designed to go on the back deck of a kayak. It's got hooks and bungees and stuff. That's what it's built to do.
Nothing else? Okay.
I didn't know there was a ferry going from Bellingham all the way up to Alaska.
Yeah, it goes from Bellingham to Juneau to Skagway. It actually goes to Skagway.
And is it very busy? Like, is it,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's their transportation.
Yeah.
I mean,
how
that's,
how often does it go?
once a week.
the weekly run is
Yeah.
the full coast. They have
Yeah.
a whole system of ferries connecting
Yeah.
the many communities that are all marine communities up there. Like
When we went to Glacier Bay, we took the ferry to Juneau, and then we took another ferry from almost a dock next door to a place called Gustavus,
Yeah.
another Alaska ferry. And then we had somebody meet us in a van. It was quite complicated. But yeah, there are ferries all over the place. So they don't stop in Canada anymore. Some of them used to stop in Rupert, but now they don't.
They used to, but they've lost so many vessels. They don't have the capacity in
Yeah.
their fleet to have.
So they go Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Juneau, Skagway.
Yep, that's right. And then the smaller communities on a less regular schedule. But from Bellingham, you can connect with that whole system. So Bellingham's quite close, right? If you were interested, that's certainly a good place to do it.
Yeah, you can just Google Alaska State Ferry System. So yeah.
Do you know why the Alaska Panhandle is so developed as compared to the BC's West Coast? What's the difference? It's the same topography, same fish, same forest.
Well, I mean, there's no big cities there. Like compared to Vancouver,
Yeah, no.
there's nothing as big as
I'm
even.
talking about Wrangell and Petersburg.
Yeah, but they're tiny, and I think the history goes back to Russian fur traders and Norwegian fishermen that came and settled there. And of course, the Tlingit were there for thousands of years before that. So, yeah, they're still there. And there's almost no road access. Like Juneau is the capital of Alaska, and you can't drive there.
Yeah.
You have to take a ferry or a float plane.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
We usually present our speakers with the much sought after, seldom seen Siska cup. So I asked these guys, because they've done presentations before, and Rob says his is getting beat up. So Rob gets the cup, a brand new one, you know.
Thank
so,
you.
Yeah, they're really good.
All right.
This was a wonderful adventure, and it looks like a really interesting trip. But I'm also really impressed in the quality of the slideshow and how you put it together, and all of the photographs and all the labeling. As somebody who does this, I know how much work it is, and this was a lot of work to do.
Mostly him.
Yeah, and this was a lot of work, and it's high quality and well done.
Yeah.
The only problem with it is because if you've done this good a job, you're going to get asked back. So
Yeah, I should say that the way this slideshow worked was Alan would put something together and send it to me and say, what do you think? And I would look at it and make corrections, say, fix this, fix that. And he would send round two. And then and he came over to my place one time and we looked at it together. And so I had input, and the pictures were 50-50 roughly, his or mine, but the bulk of the work is him.
Yeah. So, well done, guys.
Thanks.
Michael. Next month, we've got somebody who's pretty famous. He's from University of Victoria. He's a PhD, and he goes and he speaks at a variety of conferences all over the world. And his name is Richard Dewey, and it's all about tides and currents. And he's putting a show together on how it affects kayakers on the BC coast. So next month should be really interesting, and we'll do the posting, and it'll also be in the newsletter and stuff. So thank you very much for coming. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything? Any more announcements or anything for next month? Okay. So it's same date, February. Hopefully to either see you out here or see you on the water. Drive safely on your way home. Thank you. Good night.